Hello guys, welcome to another video on the GC for YouTube channel. After 8 months of not posting, I genuinely apologize for the pause, especially to those who found this channel useful. That is the 70 people who subscribed. But I won't waste your time giving any verbal explanations because I did make a post or two explaining why there was a pause. So rather, let's move straight on to the focal points of today's video, which is the correction of the Cameroon GCE Ordinary Level Computer Science Paper 1 of the year 2025. Let's get it. Question number 1. In the evolution of electronic computers, transistors were used in. Now, computers have seen 5 generations of evolution, and each generation was based on a specific technology. The first generation computers used vacuum tubes, the second generation used transistors, the third used integrated circuits, the fourth generation used microprocessors, and the fifth generation of computers used artificial intelligence. So for question 1, the generation of computers that made use of transistors was the second generation, which is B. Question 2, which of the following represents a picture file? We have A, read.avi. Now the file extension here is AVI, and AVI stands for Audio Video Interleave, and that is the extension for a video file. The next is read.doc. The doc stands for document, and as the name suggests, it's a document file. Question C, you have read.jpg. JPG stands for Joint Photographic Group. Another variant is Joint Photographic Expert Group, that's JPEG, and this is the extension for a picture file. And then last we have D, read.ppt. PPT stands for PowerPoint, and as the name suggests, it's a PowerPoint presentation, and that is not a picture file. So for question 2, the picture file is C, read.jpg. Question 3, in a word processor application, the program that provides synonyms of words is, you have a thesaurus. A thesaurus is effectively a program that provides synonym of words in a word processor application. The next option we have B is a translator. A translator is a program that converts words or sentences from one language to another. You have C, a dictionary. A dictionary is a program that provides the definition and the spelling of words. And finally D, an encyclopedia. An encyclopedia is a program that provides articles on a vast range of topics. Example, you have Wikipedia. So for question 3, our answer here is A, synonym of words. Question 4, the security measure in a computer system that requires the use of network IP address is A, you have password. Now entering a password in a computer system makes absolutely no use of your IP address. You simply enter a password credential and it gets authenticated before you're allowed to the computer. That makes absolutely no use of your IP address. Option B, you have a firewall. A firewall effectively makes use of your network IP address and other internet settings to know if it should block or allow network traffic in and out of your computer based on the IP address you're communicating with. Option C, you have encryption. Encryption is the process of converting data from a readable format to a non-readable format to ensure secure transmission throughout the internet. D, we have decryption. Decryption is the process of transforming data from a non-readable format to a readable format, maybe when it has arrived its destination computer. So for question 4, our answer is B, a firewall. Question 5, software used only to create and edit text. You have A, editor, or how most people call it, a text editor. Now a text editor is effectively a file used to create and edit text. Example of text editors, we have Notepad, we have VS Code, those are text editors. The second option B, we have a compiler. A compiler is a program that converts programming language from high-level language to low-level language by converting the entire code before it is run. The next option we have C, an interpreter. An interpreter converts high-level language to low-level computer language by translating the program line by line. And finally, we have D, an assembler. An assembler is a program that converts assembly language into low-level language. So for question 5, the software used only to create and edit text is A, an editor. Question 6. The type of error in a program caused by the omission of a keyword in a programming language is called A. You have logic error. Now, a logic error is simply a type of error where maybe your programming syntax is fine, each block of code of your program is okay, but upon running, you find out that the program does not work as expected. Say, for example, you're trying to create a program that calculates the tax on a specific good. Now, to make that program work well, you have to create a function that takes in the users, that is the price of the good, then write a function that calculates the tax on the good. Now, in a logic error, you might maybe write a function that calculates the tax on the good before the user even inputs, the price of the good he has taken. So that's an example of a logic error. The second is a semantic error. Now, logic error and semantic error are pretty much the same thing, except they have maybe an atomic difference. But in most cases, logic error and semantic error are interchangeable. Now, a semantic error is basically the same thing. You write a program and everything is fine, except it does not give you the required output. Say, for example, you're writing a program to add two numbers, and instead of writing, say, print f a plus b, you write print f a times b. Now, when you run the program, you can enter 2 and 3, hoping to find 5 as your answer, but the program gives you 6. That is, instead of adding, it has multiplied. That's a semantic error. It's pretty much the same to a logic error, so you might often get confused sometimes. Now, C, you have syntax error. Syntax error is effectively a type of error where the grammar or the structure of the code does not respect programming rules. Say, for example, in C, when you want to print, let's say, hello world, you write print f bracket open with the quotation mark, then hello world. Then, of course, with a semicolon at the end. Now, in a syntax error, maybe you can write print bracket open hello world or print quotation mark hello world. That is not how prints work in C, and that's a syntax error, or that results to a syntax error. The next option C, we have runtime error. Runtime error is maybe a type of error where your logic is fine, your syntax is fine, but upon running, the program runs into an error or a crash. Maybe it has encountered an impossible mathematical operation, say like a division by 0. If you ignore that, you find out that your logic was fine, your syntax was fine, but just that small detail caused an error. That is what we call a runtime error. So for question 6, the error caused by the omission of a keyword is a C, syntax error. Question 7. The implementation method in which an old system is totally replaced by a new one at once. You have A, the plunge method. Now, the way I remember this is by the French word plonge, or what people call plonger, where somebody says plonger dans la piscine, for example. When they say that, you simply forget about everything and dive straight into the pool. That's basically how the plunge implementation method works. That is, the company forgets entirely about the old system and dives straight into the new system. The second option, we have B, the phase implementation method. As the name says, phase, each part of the system is introduced into the company in phases. Say, for example, the company wants to introduce a new, let's say, sign-up method. The company can start by introducing a new sign-up form, then maybe a new sign-up logic, then a new sign-up database, all those things. It does not happen all at the same time. Everything happens in phases. Option C, we have the pilot implementation method. Now, the pilot implementation method is one in which the new system is introduced to the company, but only to a specific group of people at first. Those are like the people who first of all test run the product to see if it's okay. Say, for example, you want to introduce a new payment method into the company. You start by introducing to the manager and the executive staff. Then later on, you go to the workers, before finally the cleaners and everything. So you first of all start with a specific group of people, let them test run the product to see if it's fine. Then gradually others start getting into the product till finally the whole company gets into the new system. The last option, which is D, the parallel implementation method. Now, this is an implementation method in which the old system and the new system is used by the company at once, till maybe eventually the old system can be completely ditched for the new system, or they keep on running simultaneously, maybe forever. So for question 7, the method in which the old system is completely replaced by the new advanced is A, the plunge method. Question 8, the computer RAM cannot be replaced by the ROM because you have A, ROM is non-volatile. That is very true. The computer RAM is non-volatile, and when we say a memory in the computer is non-volatile, it simply means the memory preserves its content even if the computer power has been cut off. Now the computer RAM preserves its content even if the computer is connected or disconnected. So the computer RAM is non-volatile, but that is not a reason why the computer ROM cannot be used as a RAM, because if you think about it for a second, non-volatility of the ROM can be more of a bonus than a flaw. Take for example, you're using your computer, you're typing a document, then eventually NU does what it do best and cut off the light. If your RAM was non-volatile, the moment the light returns, you see that your document is still intact, nothing has happened to it. But because of the RAM being volatile, when Oneo sees the light, as your computer comes back on, you find out that nothing is there again, everything has been deleted. That is if it did not save. Option B, data in the ROM is fixed. Now this is very true. ROM stands for read-only memory, and as the acronym suggests, the memory of the ROM, that is the ROM, is only readable and not writable. By that I mean the CPU can only read or see the data that is in the ROM, but the CPU cannot write data onto it. Whereas you see RAM stands for random access memory. That means at any given point in time, the computer or the CPU needs to be able to access, write or delete or modify the data that is in the RAM. Now the fact that the data in the ROM is fixed, that is the CPU can never modify it, constitutes a major flaw why we cannot use ROM as RAM. That is because with RAM, the CPU has to constantly, or at least most frequently, read and write data to it. That is closing programs, opening programs, editing data, and all those things. The fact that the ROM is this fixed or is immutable, it means that the computer cannot even function. You cannot open a program with it, you cannot close a program or anything. This to me is a major flaw why we can't use ROM as RAM. Going to the next options, we have C, ROM is slower. Now the ROM is effectively very slow, at least compared to the RAM. That is because normally the computer knows that the CPU will not constantly read data from it, so manufacturers don't see a reason to make ROM any faster. Option D, we have ROM is too large. This is very false, and 100% of the time your computer RAM is always, as in always, larger than your ROM. ROM is mostly around 12 to 32 megabytes of space, while RAM can go from 2 gigs to even 34, 128 and all those things. So it's that the ROM is like 10 or 100 times smaller than the RAM or even more. So option D is false. So for question 8, we have the reason why we can't replace the RAM with the ROM is D, the data in the ROM is fixed. Option 9, the organization of file on a disk constitutes A. You have A query. A query is simply a search request. Option B, you have a field. A field is simply a vertical collection of data on a database. D, we have a record. A record is simply a horizontal collection of data concerning a particular entity on a database. Option D, we have a database. A database is effectively how files are stored on a disk, like in a macro scale. Say for example, in your computer, the database can have it that read.avi is stored under C/user/pictures, all those things. That is, the database can store the file name and the file directory. So for option 9, files are stored on a disk in a database. Option 10, the conversion of digital signals to analog signals is an example of A. We have moderation. Moderation is like not even a term used in computer science, so that's not even a possible answer. You have option B, demoderation is again not even a term used in computer science. Now option C, we have modulation. Modulation is a process whereby digital signals are converted into analog signals for transmission. Say for example, you want to do a voice call, Your phone listens to your voice, converts it to digital signal, that is 1 and 0. Then this digital signal get converted into analog waves and is transferred through the air, through the transmission system, till eventually reaches your receiver's phone. Now option D, we have demodulation. Demodulation now is the process where those transferred analog signals are then converted into digital signals for your phone to understand. So for question 10, the conversion of digital signals to analog signals is an example of, we have C, modulation. Question 11. The network device used to determine the best path for a data package across networks is called, we have option A repeater. A repeater is a network device used to boost signals across long distances of transmission. Let's say MTN is trying to extend their network from Yaoundé to Douala. We find out that the distance is long. For a network signal to travel that far is going to get weak over time. So MTN can use a repeater at various checkpoints in the distance to ensure that the weak signal gets boosted into a stronger signal to continue its journey to wherever it's going to. Option B, we have a router. A router is a device used to determine the best path for a data package to travel across a network. That is, it scans the network routes to determine the best, most efficient, and quickest path for a data transfer. Option C, we have a linker. A linker is a program that combines all the subfiles and headers in a program into one executable file. Let's say, for example, we're trying to create an application in Android. We can create maybe a home screen.dat, an account screen.dat, a settings screen.dat. Then upon running the program, a linker is going to combine all those files, maybe all the headers we imported, into one executable application file. Option D, we have a bridge. A bridge is a program used to connect two segments of a local area network into one. So for question 11, the device used to determine the best path for data transfer is A, router, option B. Question 12, the point on the command line interface where instructions are entered is called, we have A space. A space is simply an empty gap character, for example, this tiny space here. Option B, we have an entry. An entry is like the general name for any point in the program where you can enter data, text, or whatsoever. Option C, we have a prompt. A prompt is effectively the place in the command line interface where we enter commands. Let's say, for example, we open our command prompts here. In this command prompt, this is a prompt here. We can enter any command you want and it's going to get executed. Now we have the next option is a cursor. A cursor is simply the blinking, like a blinking vertical line that indicates we can enter a text. For example, this tiny blinking vertical line here, that's what we call a cursor. So for question 12, the point on the command line interface where instructions are entered is C, the prompt. Now option 13, a program that detects errors in a program code is called, we have option A, a compiler. As we earlier said, a compiler converts high-level language to low-level language by translating the entire code before the program is run. Next option, we have a debugger. A debugger is effectively a program that loops through your code and identifies any errors in the code. Option C, we have an assembler. As we earlier said, an assembler is a program that converts assembly language into low-level language. And finally, you have a decoder. A decoder is a program that converts encoded text into readable formats. So for question 13, we have a debugger as an answer. Question 14, the CPU system bus consists of? The CPU system bus consists of three fundamental buses. The first is the data bus. The data bus is a bus which transfers data from the CPU to the memory and the memory back to the CPU. And that means it is bidirectional, that data can flow in two directions. Now when dealing with the data bus, the size of the bus matters a lot. If you have a 16-bit data bus, the bus can transfer 16 bits of data simultaneously. A 64-bit data bus will transfer 64 bits of data simultaneously. The next is an address bus. An address bus is a unidirectional bus, that is, data flows from the CPU to the RAM only and not back. The address bus is used to transfer memory addresses from the CPU to the memory. Let's say, for example, the CPU wants to read data from a memory location, say 0xFFFF. The CPU is now going to send that memory address through the address bus into the memory. Now, when dealing with the address bus, the size of the bus is also very important. Let's say you have an address bus of n bits. The amount of memory this bus can address is equal to 2 to the n. Let's say you have a 32-bit bus. That bus will be able to access 2 raised to the power 32 bits of data, which, if you do the math, is going to give you 4 GB of memory. The final bus is the control bus. The control bus controls every other component of the CPU and tells it what to do, when to do it. Let's say, for example, the CPU wants to access data from memory location 0xFF. The CPU is going to send that address through the address bus into the memory. Then now the control bus is going to send a read signal to the RAM, telling the RAM that data is going to be read from you. Once the memory is read, the data flows now through the data bus into the CPU. So for question 14, the CPU bus consists of, you have the data bus, the address bus, and the control bus, which is option B. Question 15, an example of a spreadsheet mixer reference is, we have option A, $2. Now, a spreadsheet mixer reference is a reference where the row or the column of a spreadsheet is left relative while the other component is left absolute. That's locking it absolute the use of a $. Now, looking at option A, we find out that the column A is relative while row 2 has been locked absolute by this $. Now, option B and option C are synthetically wrong in spreadsheet language because the column comes first. And finally, you have option C, $A, $2. We find out that column A has been locked and row 2 has also been locked. This is not a mixer reference because in a mixer reference, one component has to be relative while the other is absolute. So for question 15, you have our answer as 2. Question 16. The protocol that governs the downloading of files on the internet is, you have A, HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and as the name suggests, is involved in the transfer of hypertext or web pages across the internet. B, we have FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol, and it governs the transfer or the transmission of files across the internet. That includes downloading and uploading. C, we have ISP. ISP stands for Internet Service Provider and is simply a company that provides network services in a country. D, we have IP. IP stands for Internet Protocol and is involved in the transmission of data packets across different network nodes. So for question 16, the protocol that governs downloading of files on the internet is B, File Transfer Protocol. Question 17, in SDLC, which means System Development Lifecycle, preliminary investigation is done in, we have A, project evaluation. Now the project evaluation is like at the very end of the system development lifecycle. Once the project has been developed, we are going to now evaluate the project to see if it meets the required needs of the user or the person we are building the project for. Option B, we have project analysis. Project analysis essentially refers to diving deep into the requirements of the project, like the data, the workflow, and everything. Option C, feasibility studies. Feasibility studies essentially refers to how feasible or how doable the project is. That is, if the customer meets the project's financial and functional needs. Finally, we have the system design. System design essentially talks about the actual development of the system. So for question 17, preliminary investigation is done in the stage of the feasibility studies. That's when we are trying to understand the needs of the project, if the project is viable or doable and everything. We do the preliminary investigation in this stage. Question 18, the computation of the logic operation on the string of bits 10010 and 01011 gives. Now the logic operation, and in mathematical terms, is like the equivalent of multiplication. That's the logic AND is the equivalent of multiplication, and the logic OR is the equivalent of addition. And as the multiplication states, the option is only true if both options are true, otherwise it's false. Now let's give you a demonstration of what we are talking about. If you create a new document file here, and let's insert a table where we are going to do all the things. This is the question for the first input, the column for the second input, and now the column for the output. Let me make that bigger. Okay, now the string we have 10010, so 10010, and the next string we have 01011, 01011. Now we said the logic AND is the equivalent of mathematical operation, multiplication or times. So we can start by doing it here. 1 times 0 is equal to 0. The next 0 times 1 is equal to 0. The next 0 times 0 is equal to 0. The next 1 times 1 is equal to 1. And finally 0 times 1 is equal to 0. So as we earlier said, when it comes to the logic and operation, the option or the result is only true if both propositions are true. So looking at our answer, we have 00010, and looking at the options, 00010 is option B. Question 19. Two components of a data transmission system include. Now, a data transmission system has 5 main components. The first component is a message, that is the thing that is going to be transferred all over the network. The second component is the sender or the transmitter. This is the device that sends the information across the network. It is usually a device that can convert digital signals into transmissible analog signals. Example, we have a router. Now the next component is the medium, that is the path through which the data will flow. There are two types. You have guided and unguided. Guided mediums are mediums with physical connection. Example, we have optical fiber, twisted pair cables. And unguided mediums are mediums without any physical connection. Example, we have Wi-Fi, mobile data. The next component is the protocol. The protocol refers to a set of rules and instructions that guide the transmission of data across the network. And the next component, or the final component, we have the receiver. The receiver is the destination or the device that receives the transmitted data. So for question 19, two components of a transmission system, we have the sender and the receiver. Option B. Question 20. The result of computing 1101 base 2 plus 101 base 2 is. Let's go here and create a table for the addition. Let's create it. We have 1101 and the next number is 101. Now we put an addition sign here, and now let's add. 1 plus 1 gives us 2. Since it's base 2, we cannot put a number which is equal to or greater than 2. If it's the case, we divide by 2, we write the remainder and carry up the whole number. So we have 2 divided by 2, which gives us 1 remainder 0. We are going to write 1 remainder 0. We are going to write the remainder which is 0, and we are going to carry up the whole number which is 1. Now we add 0 plus 0 is 0, plus the 1 we carried gives us 1. The next number 1 plus 1. The next we have 1 plus 1 which gives us 2. We cannot write 2, so we divide, gives us 0 remainder 1. We write as 0 and we carry up 1. Now 1 plus 1 is still 2. Since it's the end of the division, we just write the whole number the way it is 1 remainder 0, which is 1 and 0. 1, 0. So the result of our addition is 10010 base 2. Looking at our answer, we have 10010 base 2 as option A. Question 21. The acronym PIN code stands for personal identification number. So we have personal identification number as B. Question 22. Program written in HTML is interpreted by. And A, we have internet. The internet is a global network of computers. Option B, we have a browser. A browser is effectively the program which interprets HTML code, and that's the same thing it does to interpret web pages and display the visual content to you. The second and third, you have C, interpreter, D, compiler. As earlier said, these are programs that convert high-level language to low-level machine language. So for question 22, our answer is B, a browser. That is a program that converts HTML code into visual representations in the browser. Question 23, the exact number of floppy disks, each of size 4 megabytes, needed to hold 2 gigabytes of data is. To do this, we have to bring these two values down to one common unit. We can start by converting megabytes to gigabytes or gigabytes to megabytes. I prefer converting gigabytes to megabytes. So let's go here. We have 2 gigabyte to megabyte. Now 1 gigabyte is equal to 1024 megabytes, implying that 2 gigabyte is equal to 2048 megabytes. Now we have a floppy disk of size 4 megabytes. Now you want to know the number of these 4 megabyte floppy disks needed to fit 2048 megabytes of data into it. We simply divide 2048 by 4, and this will give us 512 floppy disks. So looking at our answer, we have option D, 512. Question 24. When data is being transferred from a fast storage to a slower storage, the computer processor regulates the data flow rate by making use of. We have A, controllers. Controllers are generally used to control system processes in a computer. We have option B, RAM chips. RAM chips are generally used to store data for applications currently being used by the processor. Option D, we have virtual memories. Virtual memory is simply the part of your local storage which your computer uses as RAM in case your actual physical RAM gets full. D, we have buffers. Buffers are simply small fast storages which temporarily hold data being transferred from a faster storage medium to a slower storage medium to enable the slower storage process the data without losing, that is, the other fast incoming data. So for question 24, we find out that option D, which is buffers, is effectively our correct answer. Question 25, the pair of HTML tags that generates a numbered list is. We have A, OL. The tag OL stands for ordered list and is a tag in HTML that generates a ranked or an ordered list of items, that is a list from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In other words, a numbered list. Option B, we have UL. UL stands for unordered list and it generates an unordered, unranked, or in other words, a bullet point list of items. Option C, we have B. The B tag stands for bold and is simply a tag that generates a bold text in an HTML file. Option D, we have LI. LI stands for list item and when nested in an OL or a UL, it generates the list of items. Now to demonstrate the use of these tags, let's open our text editor, which is VS Code, and create a file showing how each of these HTML tags work. So let's create a new file and we save the file as, let's just see, tags.html. Now we create an HTML skeleton using HTML5 and in it, in the body, let's create our first tag. The first tag is the OL tag or the ordered list tag. And in the tag, we now create a list element using the li tag. As I earlier said, this list element is nested either in the OL tag or the UL tag to generate a list item. So now in our ordered list, we are going to create a list item. Let's say we create the item papers. Then we create a new list item. And let's say the item pens. We create a new list item. We call it books. Then now we create another list type, and it's going to be an unordered list. Now in this unordered list, we create a list item, and the item, let's just say facts. We create another list item, and let's call it books. And the last list item, let's call it cars. And finally, the next tag, which was a B tag, we're going to create a B tag, and let's just say we want to make the text, this is a list bold. Now we save that, and here we run our file in our web browser, which is going to be Edge. So we can see the results. Alright, as you can see in our web browser, we had the ordered list, the OL tag. Alright, as you can see in our ordered list file, we had 3 list items: papers, pen, and books, and you saw that it returned a ranked list of items, labeling them 1, 2, 3, and so on. The next is an unordered list. You see it returned just bullet points of items. The items were not ranked to anything, it just returned a bullet list of items. And the last tag was the B tag. The B tag simply returned a bold text, as you can see here. So yeah, that's how all the tags in the options work. So for question 25, the tags that generates a numbered list was the ordered list tag, which is it. Question 26. Signals into and out of a company's extranet is protected from outside intruders using, we have A, encryption algorithms. Encryption algorithms simply convert text from a readable format into a non-readable format. Option B, we have firewall installations. Firewall installations can effectively block out attacks into a company's extranet by blocking network traffic to or from IP addresses that have not been authorized by the firewall settings. Option C, we have security cameras, and option D, we have solid structures. These two methods are ways of effectively blocking attacks from a company, but they are more involved with physical attacks than digital attacks. Now, trying to get into a company's extranet is always talking about digital attacks, and the best way to protect yourself from that is using a firewall. Question 27. How many symbols are there in the hexadecimal number system? The hexadecimal number system is a number system of base 16, and in this number system, we have exactly 16 characters. These characters include 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and from 10 up to 15 they are represented by letters, which are A for 10, B for 11, C for 12, D for 13, E for 14, and F for 15. If we count them all together, we have 16 characters, so the base 16 number system has 16 characters, which is T. Question 28. The smallest data storage unit on a magnetic disk is, we have a track. A track is simply a large concentric ring containing many sectors. Option B, we have a cylinder. A cylinder is the stack of multiple tracks. Option C, we have a sector. A sector is actually the smallest addressable unit on a magnetic disk. It's usually around 4 kilobytes. Option D, we have a cluster. A cluster is a group of sectors, but more at the software level of things. So a cluster is like a software level grouping of sectors. So for question 28, the smallest data storage unit on a magnetic disk is C, a sector. Question 29. Which of the hardware secures the computer from the effects of power spikes and voltage fluctuations? You have option A, a power transformer. A power transformer is used to step up or step down voltages, but it does not regulate or unify the flow of the voltage in any way. Option B, we have an uninterrupted power supply. An uninterrupted power supply is effectively the device used to regulate the effects of power spikes or voltage fluctuations on the computer. It has an internal battery into it along with other components that, in case of a sudden power spike or voltage fluctuation, the computer system is maintained safe and can be running for a short while before it's effectively gracefully shut down. Option C, we have a power controller. A power controller is a generic circuit power controlling component, but it does not control or stabilize any power fluctuation or power spikes. And finally, interruptible power supply is not even a real thing. So for question 29, our option here is B. Option B, we have half duplex. Half duplex is a communication mode where data flows in two directions, but only in one direction at a time. That is, you can go from a first component to a second, and the second component has to wait that the first component finishes sending before it can send back to the first component. The third and fourth options are duplex and full duplex. These are bidirectional communication methods, that is, data can flow in two directions simultaneously. So for question 30, the communication between a computer and a printer is a simplex. The computer can only send what the printer has to print, but the printer has nothing to tell the computer in any way. So we have option A for 30. Option 31, the term video conferencing means video conferencing in general terms simply has to talk about having a video meeting with multiple groups of people who live at remote areas online. Example of application which can be used for video conferencing, we have Zoom, we have Google Meet. So for question 31, you have B, holding a remote meeting using multimedia tools and links with participants at distant locations. For the other options, we have A, running a conference using a video projector. This is not video conferencing. Everybody needs to be physical to see what is being presented on the projector. Option C, use of large television screens to manage an outdoor conference. Again, this is not remote. This is everybody has to be on site to see what is being presented. And finally, use of video and audio facilities to run a conference in a large hall. Again, everybody has to be on site to see what's happening. So for question 31, our answer is B. Question 32, the data check that requires users to enter their secret codes 2 times before granting access is called. We have A, validation. Validation generally has to do with the evaluation of data across existing constraints. For example, you can have an input where the user is supposed to enter their age, which is normally in numbers, but the user can enter a string, maybe 15 written in words. Now, validation techniques are used to verify those type of errors and tell the user that no, you want to see only an integer in this field. The second option B, we have verification. Verification effectively deals with this type of processes where you will be asked to enter your codes twice. The system is trying to verify if what you enter in the first box is what you intended to enter by asking you to enter the same thing in the second box. Once that is done, the system is going to verify the 2 codes you enter to see if that is what you actually intended to enter. Option C, we have range check. As the name suggests, this is a type of check where a value is being evaluated to see if it falls within a certain range. For example, you're being asked your age, the system will obviously know that you're between the age of maybe 0 to, let's say, 200. So if you enter an age like 1000, the system can be like, this is false. And finally, we have C, parity check. Parity check is like a binary check done on data to see if the data has been corrected upon transmission. So for question 32, our answer is B, verification technique. Question 33, a graphical representation of a software tool or action is called and a graphical representation of a software that talking of things like this here, these are called icons. So for question 33, the graphical representation of this is called an icon. The next is a folder. A folder is like a data container that contains many folders and files into it. The second is a picture. A picture is like the general name of any graphical representation on a computer. Option Z, we have a file. A file is as well a data container in a computer. It can contain data containing a text, a video, a picture. All those things are files. Question 34, the octa equivalent of the binary number. This is, now to convert a binary number into an octa number, let's copy this. The first thing we have to do is to write down that binary number as such. Now when we have the binary number, we are going to group these numbers into 3 and find the decimal equivalent of each of these groups. Now, in order not to waste your time, here is a table containing the first 10 binary numbers and their decimal equivalents. Now we start grouping the numbers from the back and writing their decimal equivalents. So the first group we have 011, and looking at the table, 011 stands for 3. So we write our 3 here. you write 3. Now moving forward, we have the next group, which is 011 still, and it stands for 3. So you write our 3 in front. And finally, the next group of number is 10. Since we are having just 2 numbers here and we are supposed to group into 3, we can simply add a 0 in front to make the same group of 3 numbers. Now we have 010, and 010 stands for 2. So our answer is 233 base 8. Looking at our options, 233 base 8 is option B. Question 35. Laptop computers are examples of A. We have supercomputers. Supercomputers are actually super powerful computers which are used in data-heavy centers. Example, we have NASA uses supercomputers to send rockets or satellites to space. Mini computers are average-sized multi-user computers which were used like sometimes in the past. Option C, we have microcomputers. Microcomputers are small, complete computers which are built on a single chip or a single processor. And that is exactly what a laptop is. A laptop is a small, complete computer built on a single processor. So that's option C for question 35. The last option is a mainframe computer. A mainframe computer is a big computer which as well is used in data centers, for example, in a weather station. So for question 35, our answer is C. Question 36, a barcode reader is an example of A or an. A barcode reader is essentially an input device because it reads the code of a barcode and sends it into the computer for processing. So for question 35, you have C, an input device. Question 37, the full meaning of QR code is, QR stands for Quick Response Code, which is option C for question 37. Question 38, the stage from which data is stored on hard disk is, we have option A, processing stage. This is a stage where data is being transformed into information by the computer. Option B, we have storage stage. This is a stage where information is being stored into the computer. Option C, we have output stage. This is a stage where the computer sends out information through output devices. Option D, we have the feedback stage. This is a stage where the next output of the computer is simply altered depending on the output given by the computer from its previous input. So for question 37, data is stored in the storage stage. Question 38, software designed to store, retrieve, manipulate, and update data is. Option A, we have spreadsheet software. Spreadsheet softwares are used to do calculations on a grid of provided data. Option B, we have word processor software. These are softwares used to create, edit, and save Word documents or text documents. Option C, we have accounting software. These are customized softwares used mainly for accounting purposes. And option D, we have database management software. These are softwares on which large amounts of data are recorded, stored, updated, all those things. So for question 35, we find that option D, database management software, is our best answer. Question 40, the category of software that enables the computer to manage its internal resources is. We have option A, application software. Application softwares are softwares which are built for a specific purpose. For example, you have TikTok, which is built mainly for streaming videos. You have WhatsApp, which is built mainly for communication. Option B, we have custom software. Custom software is just a generic name for softwares which are built for a specific purpose. Option C, we have system softwares. System softwares are essentially the most important softwares of the computer, as they help the computer do many things like managing its internal resources, communicating with hardware, and all those things. Example of system softwares, we have the operating system, we have the firmware, we have drivers. Option D, we have automation software. These are softwares which are generally designed to carry out automatic tasks. For example, a software that automatically calculates the tasks on a good. Question 41. In database normalization, composite attributes are converted to atomic (individual) attributes in order to. Option A, create many tables. This is effectively true. In the process of normalizing data, we find ourselves creating many atomic or singular tables, but this is not the main reason why we are trying to normalize a table or a database. Option B, eliminate data anomalies. This is essentially one of the many reasons why databases are being normalized. This is to ensure that a user or an administrator can update or edit the data on one of the tables without causing any other data anomalies on the other table or in the entire database. Option C, increase data redundancy. One of the main reasons for normalizing data in the first place is to reduce redundancy. Redundancy simply means the repetition of data on a database. Finally, we have D, increase storage space. This is literally in no way no valid reason why someone will decide to normalize a table. So for question 41, our answer is option B. Question 42. The maximum signal carrying capacity of a communication channel is referred to as A. We have broadband. A broadband is simply a high-speed data transmission signaling method. Option B, we have bandwidth. Bandwidth has to do with the maximum amount of data that can flow through a transmission channel at once. Option C, we have hertz. Hertz is the formula of frequency. And option D, we have frequency. Frequency is the number of wave cycles or clock cycles per second. So for question 42, our answer is B, bandwidth, the maximum signal carrying capacity of a communication channel. Option 43, one disadvantage of computer simulations is that computer simulation has to do with trying to represent real-life scenarios using computer algorithms. Option A, it renders engineers lazy. This is very false because even trying to do simulation requires a heavy amount of data manipulation. Option B, it may give one impression of real situations. This is very true because a computer simulation engine is only as precise as the developer decided it to be, and in reality, nature has like a near infinite amount of unpredictable events that a computer simulation engine cannot always predict. In fact, a computer engineering can in most cases never predict 100% of nature's unpredictability. So this is one of the major flaws of computer simulation. Option C, it leads to suspension of work in the company. This is false. Simulation can be done simultaneously along with other tasks. And finally, no new discoveries are made. This is still a lie because most computer simulations, though they are not perfect representation of reality, they represent though the fundamental parts of what you're trying to do. So upon trying to make a simulation, you can find out that if you modify a part of the system in a certain way, it might give a better method of functioning and all those things. So it actually leads to new discoveries and not the other way around. So for question 43, our answer is B. Question 44. The installation of Windows 10 in replacement of Windows 8 in a computer is an example of software. We have A, update. Update simply refers to incrementation made on a specific software that is still on the same major version. For example, if you have Windows 8, Windows can decide to do maybe a security patch or a slight update on Windows 8 to give maybe Windows 8.11, Windows 8.12, Windows 8.13, all those things. That is still in the same Windows 8 with just some small incrementation that has no major difference in the software. Option B, we have upgrade. Now, upgrade essentially has to do with the change from one version to another higher version of the software. For example, the change from Windows 8 to Windows 10 or from Windows 10 to 11. We see that the major software versions are completely different, the user experience is completely different, the features are completely different. That is an upgrade. Option C, we have renewal. Option D, we have replacement. These are not really terms used in computer system or computer software changing, so they are not valid options for question 44. So for question 44, our answer is B, an upgrade, moving from Windows 8 to Windows 10. Question 45, the full meaning of the abbreviation SSD storage in computers is SSD stands for solid state drive or solid state device. So for question 45, you have solid state device as C for our answer. Question 46, the type of processor used in laundry machines is, you have a simple processor. This option makes no valid sense in computer science. Option B, microprocessor. Microprocessor is like a generic name for any this type of modern day processors. That's the main component of fourth generation computers. Option C, we have embedded processors. These are simple processors which are put in machines which have a clear defined function. For example, your washing machine is made only to do laundry, your dishwasher is made only to wash dish. In such machines, we use embedded processors. And the last, domestic processor, again, makes no sense in this question. So for question 46, we have C, embedded processor, as our answer. Question 47, a multiplexer receives signals from... A multiplexer is a device that receives multiple signals from different inputs and converts them into a single output signal, while its opposite, which is a demultiplexer, receives a single input signal and spreads them into multiple signal outputs. So multiplexer receives many inputs and emits them through one output, which is B. Question 48, program code that is neither compiled nor interpreted is... We have A, program code. This is just a generic name for any program code written in computer. Option B, we have source code. Source code is effectively the raw code of a program. For example, you're writing a program in C to add numbers. Whatever you write in your text editor or your IDE is their source code. Option C, object code. Object code is now the machine-readable code that is formed from the compilation or the interpretation of your source code. For example, when you run the compile program in C, the compiler creates an object code that is being used by your machine now, and it makes your program run. Finally, option D, raw code. It's not really a term used in computer programming or anything. So for question 48, code that is neither compiled nor interpreted is B, a source code. Option 49, the term soft copy in computing refers to... Soft copy refers to A, electronic output. Soft copy refers to A, electronic output. That's effectively true. For example, this PDF file we are using now is soft copy. When those who are writing the paper had to receive it, they received in a printed copy or what we call a hard copy. So soft copy is literally the software version of a document, which is an electronic output A. Then next we have non-aggressive output. Makes no sense. Printed copies. Printed copies are now what we call the hard copies. And the information without pictures, again, makes no sense in the context of this question. Question 50. Who is responsible for coordination of the development of an information system? We have A, the project technician. The project technician is the person who fixes the hardware in the company. Option B, we have the system programmer. This is a person who writes the actual computer code for the system being built. Option C, system analyst. The system analyst is a person who serves as the bridge or the middleman between the project developers, the stakeholders, the management team, and all those things. He is involved in coordinating a project from the analysis stage to the development stage and every other thing. Option D, we have the project manager. The project manager is the person who controls the project scheduling, but he's not the one directly involved in coordinating the development of the information system. So for the last question, question 50, our answer is C, system analyst. We have come to the end of today's episode. Thank you all for watching. If you do appreciate this content or learned anything new, please consider subscribing. Thank you all for sticking to the end, and see you all in the next video.